It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Let's talk about ourselves, because like I said, the homework I gave you, Bo, before we even drafted show notes was I want you to write down your habits that you feel like make you successful.
Sure.
And look, this is the part where you go reveal a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
but I think it's still helpful. So here's kind of our personal habits for success, and then we'll kind of pivot and go into some of these self-help gurus and see where there's compare and contrast and talk about some common things that we see for all of them. So for me, I first want to set the stage and tell you I am one of those naysayers that I started this company in 2002, and every year you go to conferences and they tell you, and you hear the same thing every year at a conference, write down your ideal client. Mm-hmm. And you hear them like, oh, it's common sense. I know what my ideal client is. I want somebody who's rich. Yeah. I mean, that's what you just see. You hear that, but you hear write down your ideal client, and then go ahead and start looking at your client base and figuring out how many. Take inventory of your clients and see how many of them actually match that ideal client. I never did this until, Bo, you were actually a part of the firm when we started doing it. It was probably around 2009,
That's
2010.
Right, 2009, 10, right
so you can see it took me 8 years. I'm telling you all this to set the table to tell you that I was a naysayer on how powerful habits could be. But in 2009, 2010, I went to a conference, finally felt motivated enough that I wrote down what my ideal client looked like. And then I even created what is our ideal client, what is somebody who's aspiring will likely become that ideal client, and who are people you that are not who you probably should be working with if your company wants to be what it is. And I kid you not that within a year to 18 months, my business was transformed.
That's right.
And then I started looking back and I was like, what happened? And as I've gotten older and I consider myself a little wiser, I've realized this machine that we are as humans, we are production machines. We're meant to be efficient, and we're built to be successful. But there's a lot of components that I don't think we give a lot of power to. It's not only our physical connection with the world. There's also emotional stuff that's going on. There's your basic intelligence and your just what you have built in and aptitudes. And then there's the subconscious. Sure. And that's the part that I think these habits really connect with the spirit and the subconscious. And there's all these parts that are that inner voice that's pushing you behind the scenes that connects. So I tell you all that just because I wanted to make sure that you understood what I want you to get out of this show. Is I want you to understand that some of this stuff is going to sound so simple, and you've probably heard Tony Robbins, you've heard others talk about it, but you've never taken the time to actually do the simple step. And you're going to be surprised if you'll just do this simple step, how much will actually happen for you. So let's jump in this. My weekday habits. These are my weekday habits that I do, and they're a little different than you. I mean, some of them are the same, but they're different times. Sure. Like I exercise 3 days a week. This is, y'all should know, I will go ahead and tell you, this is the revealing part. I lost my father at a young age. My dad was 54, 55. I was in my 20s, mid-20s when Dad passed away. My grandfather passed away when I was 50. I have this death insecurity. And that's probably ridiculous that I say that, and y'all are like, oh my God, here's where the weirdo, and realize full weirdo here, but this is why I get paid good money, is because this weirdo brain does some incredible things. But exercise helps me check the box on my death insecurity, but it also, I will tell you that when I've started exercising and gotten in what I consider decent cardiovascular shape, my energy's better, I sleep better at night, and then I feel like, I don't know if it's pheromones or if it's just you feel confidence, business works better when I'm in good shape. So that's one thing is exercise. Morning Bible study. This is one, I will tell you, we don't talk politics, we don't talk religion, because I'm not one of those people that pushes that stuff on you guys, but I would be really missing a huge point if I didn't tell you doing morning Bible study for myself. It's that center time where I'm all alone, and it really sets the stage for the day. I think this is a big part of creating fulfillment, is when you have purpose, you feel like you know why you're here and what you're doing, and that also gives you a time of reflection, prayer, and thinking about where you're centered and where you're going. It's been huge for me. Yep. And then the other habits that I put a weirdo one on here just because I'm being honest. My wife thinks this is the kookiest thing. And I think a lot of my guys I work with think this is weird. I remember the first time I told y'all I was doing this, I think y'all really had doubts and were even worried about me a little bit, is I do 3 to 4 times a year. I do what's called a full water fast, meaning that I don't eat anything. The only thing I consume is water.
Right.
And I'll do 3 to 5 days. 5 is the longest I've done. 3 is much easier, and it's phenomenal for me because I think I think a big part of success is discipline and it's and deferred gratification. If I can do these things, I think it does a lot of physical stuff to your body, and it proves my point that this machine is much more powerful and much more resilient than I think the average person realizes. We have a whole part of our body that is designed to kick into gear when you deprive it of things and you only do water. So, and it once again allows me to kind of check that box on that death insecurity. Yeah. So doing those type of things are kind of my daily rituals, as well as that water fast 3 to 4 times a year to kind of centers me and gets me ready. So what's your crazy habits or daily habits that make you successful?
I thought those were great, Brian. You know, one that's huge for me is I try to exercise every day. Now, I have to go early in the morning, so I have to wake up every morning at like 4:30. I'm at the gym by 5, just because with the age of my kids and stuff that I have going on business-wise, it's just when it makes sense. But what I love about this, and we saw this because you and I were actually working together back in the Great Recession in 2008, in 2009, and one of the ways that we were actually able to handle that, one of the ways we were able to deal with the stress of that was when the market closed, we would go to the gym. We would go work out, exercise, get some adrenaline going, that sort of thing. I think that's huge. So a big thing for me to set the tone for my day is to wake up early, go to the gym, and exercise. And
full disclosure, I hired you that year of the Great Recession, and there was no guarantee that I was going to be able to afford you for a long time. And you coming out of college and having this college, athletic background, I was finding just another way to get value out of you because you were my personal trainer. So some of this was not completely. It was a great stress relief, though, but I wanted to make sure I gave you perspective.
So I work out every morning. Another thing that I do, and this is one that I think is really interesting, is my wife and I, we've been together for over a decade now.
Hopefully, well, you're more than dating.
We've been married for a number of years now. And one thing that I do is she's still asleep every morning when I leave for the gym. Fortunately, now both girls are also still asleep when I leave for the gym, which is a fantastic life change in our world. But one thing I do is I make sure I kiss my wife every morning before I leave. She doesn't know that I'm there doing it, but for some reason it just sets my mind right that I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. And then I started thinking through like some sort of weird things that I do. When I walk into the office every morning, the first thing I do is I have the same ritual where I open all the exact same windows and I log into the exact same systems. So when I sit down to work, I'm logged into every piece of my life, which is, I get that, kind of wild and kind of weird.
By the way, you're a functional OCD too.
Oh, for sure.
That's what. So you have processes and systems, and it's part of that secret sauce that I think makes you very successful. But you have a weird brain too.
Yeah,
full
doubt.
disclosure.
I'm sure my wife, she is an amazing person because I'm a hard person to live with.
Keep going though. I'm sorry, we could digress.
And so then I thought about some financial habits that I do now and that I've always done that kind of set me up for success. And one thing that is really important to me that we've done an entire show on this is giving. And so one of the things I do is every month before we process payroll, before we actually take our paycheck or whatever, I calculate my giving and process my giving before I do any of my saving, before I do any of my estimated tax payments, before I do any of that, because I think it sets the perspective, at least for me, about, ultimately what are we doing when we're generating wealth and saving and what's it all about. So I like doing that first. Another thing that I do is every single month, I pay my credit card bills on the same day every month. And by doing that, it makes sure that nothing ever slips by. Yeah. I just know that on the first day of every month, I go in and I pay all credit cards that I have. And it's just an easy way to do that and just kind of clear the mechanism. And then this isn't so much a daily habit, but this is an annual habit. And I picked this up from you. I do a net worth statement every single year. Yeah. I'd like to tell you that I do it on December 31st, but we get real excited towards the end of the year, and we do it a little bit earlier. But it's a fantastic, that's one of those things that every year, annually, that's a habit that I think sets us up for financial success.
So that was incredible, and hopefully you guys got to know a little bit more about us. Hopefully it doesn't push you away too much, because here's the thing I've realized. The older I get, we're all weird. Everybody out there, you have your own weird quirk. You know you have it. It's just, I think you're healthier when you realize where your weirdo lies inside of you. It's kind of like, what's the Miranda Lambert song where, She talks about hiding her
Oh,
crazy.
hide your crazy,
I mean,
yeah.
that is really the average person is just how do you cope with the way you're wired.